Hello and welcome to the Royals with me, Roya.
And me, Kate.
On a very special, very important dispatch from Estonia.
That's right, specifically the Tapa Army Base here in Estonia, which is home to around 900 British troops from the Mercian Regiment.
They're here along with troops from France, bolstering NATO's eastern flank.
And today, they're joined by Roya and I, but also a whole host of journalists from the British and Estonian media. So why are we all here today, Roya? Can you explain it to us?
Well, the Prince of Wales has been here this morning, visiting in his role as Colonel-in-Chief of the Mercian Regiment to show his support for their presence and their efforts here. But also, crucially, to show support for Estonia at a crucial moment, geopolitically, internationally, and to show his ongoing support to Ukraine.
That's right. It's quite a lot to fit into 2 days,
Quite
but he's managed it. What's the kind of feeling, do you think, as we finish that last engagement just now on the camp? He's gone off now, that's him done. How do you think it went?
I think it went very well, and I think it's been a brilliant sort of insight into the two key things that William's very keen on, highlighting the work of the military and the armed forces in which he served, and that role of him as the growing international statesman, which he's also very keen to bolster.
So we've got a really special and moving episode for you today. We're going to be discussing the importance of the UK's role here in Estonia at such a crucial and unsettled time. Plus, Roya and I will reflect on the visit as a whole as the Prince becomes an ever-growing presence on the global stage.
William arrived in Estonia yesterday into the capital, Tallinn, where he first met the Estonian President, Alar Karis, before visiting a very special school.
And an estimated 60,000 Ukrainian refugees are now living in Estonia after fleeing Russia's full-scale invasion of their country in 2022, which, as a proportion of the population, is only 1.3 million people here. That is the equivalent to 3 million people coming to the UK, just to give it some sort of context.
At one point, around 4% of the population in Estonia were Ukrainian. And in response to the invasion, the Estonian Ministry of Education set up the Vabaduse School, the Freedom School, in Tallinn for some of those 60,000 Ukrainian refugees. And that school is helping to rebuild their lives.
While he was there, William spoke to students and teachers about the new environment and some of the challenges and successes, I think it's fair to say, they faced there. And there were some great images of the Prince shooting some hoops on the basketball court with some of the students, having a bit of downtime. And after that, we had some really interesting conversations with the school's head teacher, an 18-year-old Ukrainian student, and a social worker who told us a bit more about the school and the importance of the Prince's visit and how the school supports them. So we're joined now by Olga Selisheva, who's the head teacher here at the Freedom School. And Olga, can you just give us a little bit of background about the history of the school, why it was set up, and a little bit about the work that it does and you do with the students here?
Yeah, sure. So if we go back to year 22, when the war started, and Ministry of Education understood one day, I think it was like in April, that actually we have very many students from Ukraine and they need education, they need to study, and it was a decision that Tallinn needs such kind of school, especially for Ukrainian refugees. And so we started to build it up from zero. We didn't have anything, and we had one summer, June, July and August, to get something for our students. And on the 1st September we have met with 600 students from Ukraine. And I remember that our students, they actually talked to us. They talked to us later about that they absolutely didn't want to go to school in Tallinn. Right. Because for them that this like school and everything, this means that we are staying here.
That they've left Ukraine.
Yeah. It makes them feel more permanent.
But they didn't want it. They actually, they wanted, of course, they wanted to study in their own schools with their own class teachers, with their own classmates. I don't want to be here. And
it's an acceptance.
It was very hard. It was very hard for teachers because Ukraine is a huge country, and now you will be one class, different experience. experiences, different parts of Ukraine, small cities, big cities, and now you are 22, you're in one class, and please be here. It was a really big challenge, and I think that if you compare that we have now, I think that we try to do everything that students can feel safe here.
And how many students have you got now?
Now we have 500 students.
And as Olga, as the conflict has played out over the last few years, and at the moment, of course, there are attempts to sort of secure peace, but it's very uncertain. The world is very uncertain at the moment. How have you seen what's happened with the conflict play out in terms of the students and the worries they have, the impact on their mental health? I know the support for mental well-being students here is a real focus of the school. How have you seen that impact them on a kind of day-to-day basis?
Of course, because everything that our students saw, they are 13, 14 years old. They're small, and everything they have seen, it's not okay to see everything like this when you are 14 years old. And they are teenagers. Of course, they have some teenagers' problems or some kind of
it's hard enough being a teenager anyway without.
Yeah, and if you put it together, it's absolutely it's very difficult, and that's why we really this mental health and support is number one, because everything if the students feel themselves good, if he feels safe, if everything is okay with the family, so then he can focus on math and PE lessons and Estonian language. Only like this.
You've obviously just had Prince William here, and you met with Prince William, and he's heard from you and some of the students about the journey and the support the school provides for them. What does it mean to have Prince William come here and show the UK's ongoing support for Ukraine and also Estonia's support for Ukraine?
I think it is a very good message for our school family, for everyone actually, that we need to support Ukrainian people. The war is still happening, and of course one day we think that it's something that is not going to happen with us, and it's somewhere else. But actually, this is something that we need to understand, that we are here, that Ukrainian people are here. They still need us every time, every day, and I think this was the main message of this visit, that we are supported and Ukrainian people are supported.
What I love is the Ukrainian resilience is everywhere. You all are very smiling and very strong and very kind of spiritual people. And honestly, that comes across everywhere. Even Ukrainians I met in the UK are like that. They're very resilient and very strong about things. You have a very good spirit, very good soul. It's very important.
Thank you.
Yeah. Very good. Even if your language is incredibly hard to learn. I need to take some of these paperwork with me to look at.
Yeah, of course you can.
Learn my languages better.
So we're now joined by Elizaveta Lukiachuk, who's a student here at the Freedom School, and Helena Naumenko, who's the school psychologist and also from Ukraine. And can you tell us a little bit about your story and your background?
Okay, so I can start. I have arrived in Estonia on the 12th March in 2022. Yes, so like the first half of the year, I was just at home here, and I was trying to adapt to a new life. And in September 2022, I went to a school of freedom, Vabadus, and started here my study. So now I'm in the 12th grade, and in April I have to pass all my exams in order to finish Estonian school in Estonia. And after that, my plan is to go to the university. And actually, I want to study in Estonian language. So my goal for now is to pass B2 exam of Estonian language, B2 level. Yes.
How important is it, Elizaveta, to have a school like this set up in Estonia for the Ukrainian community who've been displaced by the conflict? How important is it?
I would say that creating this school was the most important thing for Ukrainian students, because when the war began and all of us moved to the Europe, to another countries, it was difficult to adapt and it was difficult to find new friends. And here in this school, we have very active school life, we have very active student council, and just thanks to it, thanks to support of teachers,
Subscribe for more updates and enjoy your video.
I think that we as Ukrainian refugees and children we had an opportunity to live our life again in to the fullest, I would say, like that.
That's really nice to hear, because you're here with lots of Ukrainian friends, obviously, and there's a part of the school where you do still maintain kind of Ukrainian language, Ukrainian culture, so that lives on through the students.
Yes, here we have lessons of Ukrainian language and literature and even Ukrainian history. So the school gives us an opportunity not to forget our own native language, and to gives us an opportunity to continue learning it. Yes, and also in addition, we learn a lot about Estonia, Estonian history, and Estonian language. So yeah, we have here two main languages in our school.
Can I ask you, Sveta, you've just been meeting with Prince William, who's here visiting Estonia for a couple of days. And he's here, obviously, to build our relationship with Estonia, to thank Estonia for the support of Ukraine, but also to highlight stories like yours. Can I ask you, how do you feel in terms of the UK's support for Ukraine in the conflict, and how important is it to have Prince William come here and listen to your stories?
I would say that actually it is very important, and it is an essential part for us to feel this support. And when I sat with Prince William, I felt that I felt in our conversation his support, and the words of maybe of worries, I would say, like that. So for us as Ukrainians, it's very important to feel it and to hear this support. And actually, if we talk about UK, I would say that UK helps Ukraine a lot. Yes. So this meeting with Prince William shows us again that people from UK want to hear our stories and want to help us.
So having that spotlight put on the school and the conflict has been very useful. That's essentially what you're saying. What was he telling you during the visit? What was he saying?
Okay, so our conversation was about school, about languages in our school, and also about our background, our own stories, how did we get to Estonia and how is our life in Estonia. And also Prince William asked us about our worries about Ukraine and what we will do in the future. So maybe we will come back home or we will stay in Estonia. So yeah.
So Helena, you're the social worker here at the school, and there is a real focus here at the Freedom School on the mental well-being of the students. Can you tell us a little bit about how you and the school support students like Elizaveta in terms of, it is a big life change, as she said, how the school helps support them, and what kind of things you see in terms of how the students are affected by the conflict and what's happened?
I think it's the first thing is I have to say that in Freedom School is a huge support team. We have psychologists, social workers, we have educational advisors, maybe. And we have teachers who works with children with special needs. So we can do everything.
What sort of needs are you seeing these children? Obviously, there'll be all sorts of trauma from, they've spent their childhood in war. Now they're relocated to a country where they don't know the language. What are you seeing? Are they traumatized by what they've been through in Ukraine, or what do you see?
We see that our children, some children only now are ready to speak about their experience, about their feelings, but some children wanted to speak about his life, about their life when they arrived in Estonia.
So sometimes people coming to you straight
Yes.
away and unburdening,
Yes.
but whereas others, it's a kind of a delayed effect that you're seeing, and
yes.
that's a
Yes.
different challenge.
We notice our support team noticed that more children had post-traumatic syndrome, but now its situation is better, of course, but we have another problem when our students, I think most of them, they don't know how to live in the future. They, for some children, it's difficult. It's Estonian language is absolutely different language, and we know that if you want to study free, you can now you have to know Estonian language because this is state language, and they begin to study English language because in Estonia very many English program for our students, for Ukrainian students, and I think it's Estonia support in every zones, in every area. We feel this support.
So how the country of Estonia is supporting the Ukraine,
Yes.
and the impact on you and the school system as well.
Yes.
But presumably a lot of these students are coming, they've lost family members.
Yes.
Really had quite disastrous situations.
Yes.
Elisabetta, just going back to you, your trauma, do you feel like a lot of your generation have lost a big chunk of your childhood because of the war?
Yes, I would say like that we lost a lot, and I would say that you start like appreciate lots of things when you lost it. So I think that like it is lots of children here in our school after the war began. Lots of children decided that we have to appreciate now our life, our like relatives, friends. So lots of us started to learn something new. Lots of us decided to have more friends or spend like their free time more with their family. The main thought for now is that you have to appreciate what you have, because one day, as we understood, we can lost something.
So it's quite moving and inspiring talking to you, Elisabetta and Olga.
It was, wasn't it? And I think that conversation really brought it home why Estonia is so important in the Ukraine conflict, because all the refugees that have gone here, for quite a small country, 1.3 million people in this country.
Yeah.
They have had such an influx of refugees from Ukraine, so they're really feeling it. And it's just those personal stories.
Yeah.
We hear so much about the war and, the politicking behind it, but actually hearing those personal stories was really moving, I thought.
And Elisabetta was quite interesting talking about having met Prince William, the importance of a royal visit here, what his visit does, how it highlights the fact that there are those sorts of
Subscribe for more updates and enjoy your video.
schools, the human interest stories.
What it actually means, and the teachers saying these sorts of things kind of give them hope and to have a future that they didn't know they could have. So
We're now delighted to say we're joined by Wing Commander Rob Hall, Defence Attaché here. Thank you so much. And we're in very lively naffy at the Tapa camp. And you're going to very kindly tell us a little bit more about Operation Cabrit, the British deployment here, what it is, what it's for, who's here, and why Prince William's visiting.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, so Operation Cabrit is around 900 personnel in total, and it's the UK's contribution to what we call Forward Land Forces, and that's under a NATO deployment, and that is here to bolster the eastern flank of the alliance. And the UK has been the framework nation in support of Estonia for the last 8 or 9 years or so. So our troops have been coming through on a 6-monthly rotation here in Tapa camp. And we have the core of the battle group, which at the moment is the Mercian Regiment. And of course the Prince is Colonel-in-Chief of the Mercian Regiment, and I'll say more about that in a moment. But the core of the battle group is supported by other subunits, as we call them. So that will include artillery subunits, engineers, and all the other enablers that allow them to deploy here in a self-contained manner. So they will have done several months of preparation before deploying here to Tapa, working with our partners very closely as well. So we also have a French subunit deployed as part of the battle group, working very closely with them. And we've also worked for several years hand in hand with the Estonians. Now that includes things like Operation Interflex in the UK, where we work jointly training Ukrainian troops for the front line in Ukraine. And also we interoperate with their brigade and division here in Estonia. So we are among the closest and most interoperable of European partners as a result.
But just to be clear, this is a really significant base. So this is the largest, you can explain it better than me, largest international deployment of UK troops in the world. And I think people will be quite surprised to know that.
Yeah, so it's the largest operational overseas deployment for the British Army. So it's a critical deployment for the UK Armed Forces. And it complements our wider global footprint, whether it's air operations in the Middle East or maritime naval operations around Bahrain from the headquarters there.
But of course where we are now is significant as well, because this is the northeastern NATO flank. You know, we're less than 100 miles from Russia here. Tell us why that's important now, that Operation Cabrit, obviously with everything that's going on, and tell us a bit about, you know, this unsettled world in which we are living in at the moment and how this is helping.
Yeah, so the contribution of the UK to the overall defence of the alliance is critical, and it's underlined here by the Prince's visit over this couple of days. So as Colonel-in-Chief of the Mercian Regiment, he will get a real insight and understanding of some of the challenges that the troops face here, away from their families and friends for 6 months, but also it gives that really critical link to the Crown, and for him to understand the day-to-day issues that he can then take back to the palace, and it helps him build up that picture over several months and years.
And you mentioned that we've had a few royal visits here. You mentioned you had the Duke of Edinburgh here, I think in January, the Princess Royal has been. Duke of Edinburgh, of course, Colonel-in-Chief of the Royal Dragoon Guards, who've handed over to the Mercians. So there is a real focus. Why do you think British members of the royal family keep coming to highlight the work the troops are doing here? Because I was listening to William earlier, and he was talking to some of the soldiers and said, you know, I really hope that me coming here keeps people on their toes and sort of lets people know what you're doing. Why do you think it's important? Do you think sometimes maybe the UK and the rest of the world forget what some of the NATO troops are doing here?
I think it's really important for us to help illuminate what the British Armed Forces are doing, not just in Tapa and in Estonia, but across the world. We remain globally committed to peace and security across the world, in support of many other missions and in support of many other nations. But that critical person-to-person link that the Prince is able to display here helps us to make that case or you know, illuminated even more. So I think, you know, that ability for us to demonstrate that it's a deeply personal connection that the British royal family has with His Majesty's Armed Forces, and to see that on the ground here will lift morale no end, and it will ensure the standards remain impeccably high. Does it really, when you have members of the royal family, does it lift the troops? It certainly does, because of that personal connection. Many of the royal family, of course, have served in the armed forces, some on frontline activity as well. So that personal, person-to-person connection is really important to us. You mentioned in our briefing with you yesterday that this has been planned for months, but this is a very timely visit given what's going on geopolitically around the world, a very uncertain time, discussions between NATO allies about possible peacekeeping forces being sent to Ukraine, including British troops. How does a visit like this play into that? It's really important because it focuses the mind, and it helps the British public to understand what His Majesty's Armed Forces are doing on the ground. As the framework nation here, we are the closest partner to the Estonians strategically, and the way in which we interoperate with each other is testament to that. So any way that we can highlight the critical role that we're doing here as NATO's foreign land forces gives us that opportunity to underline that mission. And then also, you talk about the personal element, but we know these pictures are going to go around the world. This is a great kind of advertisement, isn't it, really, for the British Army and what we do. And we've seen today William looking at some new weaponry. I was there when he oversaw a kind of trench exercise in which, you know, enemy troops were captured, and it was very exciting. There was machine gun fire. What image is that sending around the world about Britain's capabilities with the Prince there overseeing it? I think it's really important to underline what I mentioned earlier, that it's a clear display that the UK is a globally committed expeditionary country with, you know, quite important soft power aspects to it as well. So our ability to highlight what the troops here are doing helps us to get that message across both to the British public and to friends and families back home as well.
Right, so it's a 2-day trip. It's finished. But it's only really kind of 24 hours, wasn't it? And it was quite a full-on 24 hours. I think we learned a lot. I think we saw that development of William as the kind of global statesman. What was the highlight of the trip for you, Roya?
I think it's seeing William, as you said, kind of evolving in that role. It's for a long time, I think now, last few years, William's clearly been very keen. He and his team have been very keen to build that profile of him as not so much king in waiting, but sort of global statesman now, that he's sort of, ready to go. And I think yesterday when he arrived in Tallinn and walked up the steps of the presidential palace and, turned and shook the hand of the president, Anil Karis there, he's doing more and more of that. We're seeing more and more of those, bilateral meetings, whether it's with Trump. in Paris or, the Estonian president. He's being deployed to do that more and more, and I think he's very keen to do that as well.
Yeah, I think there has been this element that he's sort of been slightly reluctant in the past to kind of take on that responsibility, which obviously he doesn't like the idea of being in the public eye all that much, I don't think, but we're seeing this kind of at this moment in time him realising the kind of power of his position and what he can do and the duty that comes with that as well.
And what he was saying about earlier on when he was looking at some of the tanks and the armoured vehicles here with the Mercians, he understands that well. He was saying, I hope my visit here keeps people on their toes, sort of keeps the international community on their toes as to what the British troops are doing here. He
understands the spotlight that he's bringing to this,
and it's very timely. Although the palace kept saying to us this has been planned for 6 months, this week of all weeks when we've had defence ministers meeting, really, talking about possible deployments to Ukraine, it's been very timely.
Yeah. I was speaking to somebody there as well that, is in the Mercian Regiment, and of course he's Colonel-in-Chief of the Mercian Regiment, and he went there just before Christmas to meet some of the families and things. And he just said to me, when I saw William today, he recognised me from that event. So it's that kind of, it's the personal connection that he has with the military that's bringing to bear. There's a kind of micro thing going on here, isn't there? He's got that kind of personal connection with the military. It's not just a kind of token gesture. It really means a lot to him. Remembers this guy's name, remembers the families that he met. But at the same time, the images of him in a tank are going to go around the world, making a very important point.
Reminding
and
people
NATO are here, not very far from the Russian border, in fact, as a show of strength at a time that's, as everybody here is saying, is very unsettled. And the whole trip has been very Ukraine focused. There's no mistake as to why he's here.
No.
We've seen the Ukraine school, we've seen the impact that Ukraine refugees and the war there is having here, how Estonians are joining together with the French, with the British troops under this UK, deployment mission umbrella of Operation Cabrit to actually be a force for defence. William's only been on the ground for about 24 hours, but it's also a very interesting window into how these visits are arranged, because of course there's a Royal Visits Committee. He's here at the request of the government. The government will be, have a big part in playing in him coming here. But how these visits are tailored. So we've had the military side of it, which of course is, very important to the government. We've had Keir Starmer here. But yesterday we had William going to the Freedom School, but a huge part of that was mental health and the mental health support that's provided to the students there. Obviously that being a very big part of what William does and wants to always keep talking about. He's been talking to the trauma
the welfare team here as well about mental health. And then we had him go to Cleantech yesterday and meet some of the companies part of Estonia's sort of green energy boom. And that plays into the things that William is very keen on as well and wants to talk about.
Also timely again, ties in with Ukraine, ties in with Russia, because that just a month ago the Baltic states
unplugged themselves
from the giving Russia the power of their previously controlled energy system. So now they're on the European network, which was a big move for them. And that clean energy conversation that William's so involved with kind of plays into the political sphere as well. So it's not just him on his kind of the things that interest him, but it's interesting to see it all connecting, all kind of tying in together. And one of the highlights for me was being out in the trench,
in the mud,
in the trenches.
How were the trenches, Kate?
Because it's just interesting to see what's happening here, and the guys are saying that the training here is like nothing you can get in the UK, because the trenches are kind of can go up to like 3 kilometres long.
God.
So William's really fascinated in that, apparently. He's really interested in the weapon systems. it's underlying everything that he's so plugged into what the military are doing. You know, he's going to be, as king one day, head of the armed forces, and it's a role he obviously takes very, very seriously.
It was interesting as well talking to some of the soldiers here about what a royal visit means to them. They've had the Duke of Edinburgh here, they've had the Princess Royal here, and there's that connection with his father, because his father was Colonel-in-Chief of the Mercians until 2023. Now we've got, the next Colonel-in-Chief. So there's always that continuation as well. And I think seeing William, we've just been watching William go around the NAFI, playing, table football and having a go at pool, how at ease he is with the military.
Yeah, he loves it here, doesn't he?
Having served in the military for 10 years.
He feels very comfortable, clearly.
Do you think there's something about William seeing soldiers here training who are deployed on Operation Cabrit for operational, reasons, and potentially, some may serve, some may go to Ukraine, some may not. He never served on operations. He wasn't allowed to. Do you think he's even more interested in soldiers who are deployed operationally because he wasn't able? Harry did.
Yeah, maybe he never got the chance to do it.
So he can hear firsthand what it's like.
Yeah, I think he's really enjoyed that. The chap said he was fascinated to hear all about what was going on, the kind of nuts and bolts of how you go in to an enemy trench, you spot an enemy trench, how you go in, how you capture the enemy, the high value targets, and bring them out. And it's really boys' own stuff. It's very exciting. But one of the things that's really surprised me about this trip, and I hadn't anticipated it beforehand, was the reaction from Estonian public and how much they love the royal family. We've heard from the people in around the visit, let's say, about Estonia's cultural connection with Britain, about how British TV shows like Keeping Up Appearances have been on TV here, a big part of the kind of psyche.
And how a lot of them tune in to watch the coronation.
Yes.
And are very into the royal family.
Yeah.
Subscribe for more updates and enjoy your video.
Really into the royal family, and William's quite a star here in a way that I perhaps hadn't appreciated before. I spoke to this one woman at the presidential palace who'd come over from Latvia, and she says, well, we're really pleased that he's here because she thinks it shines a light on the whole Baltic region, and it's saying, back off Russia, essentially. That's the message, and so she was there to kind of get a glimpse of the prince, and she's a big royal fan, and I guess I just hadn't appreciated that there would be so much love for him here.
The British royal family are a thing in Estonia, as we had a briefing yesterday, didn't we, with at the embassy, and there was some Estonian media there, and I was asking, is the royal family a big deal in Estonia, and if so, why? And she stood up and said, they're a very big deal here. We are very, very interested in the royal family. We watch everything they do. We're interested in what they do. We all watch the coronation. We watch all the big national events. I was quite surprised by that.
Yes, yeah.
Soft power. They travel. It travels.
Soft power.
Monarchy brand travels.
Yeah, it's the brand. And then here, in the NAFI, we're seeing like that combination, soft power and military power together. It's exactly what the royal family is all about, isn't it?
Do you think William will be pleased with how it's all gone?
I think he will be. Yes, I think he will be. Do you?
I do. Yes, I think he looks like it's just combined the two things that he wants to be known for, being a global statesman and being, about future commander-in-chief, future colonel-in-chief of the armed forces, as someone who served. Yeah, I think it's gone well for him.
And I think he was quite a lot in control about how it was, what he was going to do while he was here. It isn't just that the government sends him and, they create an itinerary with the palace and he trots up and shakes the hands. It's very much his, like you said, with the excellent point about the clean tech company, it's his fingerprints are over the whole trip.
And some people might wonder, why is the Princess of Wales not here with him? And the palace have been quite clear on that, haven't they? He's Colonel-in-Chief, so he's coming to do his thing. The focus is on his regiment. She was doing the St. Patrick's Day stuff last week as
solo
Colonel-in-Chief there. So we shouldn't expect to see her on all these big foreign deployments, as much as I think some of us would love to see go on some more trips with them abroad.
I'd love to see her on a trench exercise. I think that'd be fantastic.
Good luck with that.
Well, it's good fun.
So we've heard from Estonians about how into the royal family they are. It's a rather curious, interesting tale about a member of the royal family who was here recently, and Estonia. So we had the Duke of Edinburgh here in January visiting.
Yeah. He's been a couple of times, hasn't he?
He has, because he's big in Estonia. Is Colonel-in-Chief of the Royal Dragoon Guards who've handed over to the Mercians. But a while ago, back in 1991, he was approached by one of the parties here, one of the political parties called the Royalist Party. And they approached him with an idea to be the King of Estonia, Kate.
What an offer.
They wrote a letter to Prince Edward, then Prince Edward, and said that your background in being
We think you qualify.
your background in being a television producer would be absolutely what we need to put Estonia on the map. Would you be the king of our newly independent nation?
You don't ask, you don't get.
They did ask. They didn't get, because Buckingham Palace apparently sent a reply saying it was a charming idea, but a rather unlikely one.
Oh, right.
So
That's quite a
Edward
nice reply, isn't it?
Remained
Let them
down the
gently.
pecking order and did not become king of Estonia.
Well, he's been back.
He hasn't held it against them. He's been back.
I have to say about Edward, he was here when it was snowing and deep in. It's pretty chilly today, but it must have been absolutely freezing when it was freezing when he was here. So fair play.
Fair play to Edward.
King of Estonia. Well, maybe there'll be a letter coming for the Prince of Wales.
Well, it's been great fun being out and about.
It has, hasn't it?
Out deployed to Estonia for a couple of days.
On manoeuvres.
Doing the podcast from all over the place.
Yeah. Well, we'll be back in the studio next week, though, I think.
We're back on more normal royal manoeuvres next week.
Yes, I won't have my muddy boots on next week.
So,
more palace attire.
From Palace attire. Can't wear those at the palace.
No.
From the naffy at the Tapper camp.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Goodbye. See you next week.
Bye. See you.